She didn't argue. She didn't shout. But when the airline humiliated the wrong woman, justice arrived in silence, and it hit harder than any scream could. It was one of those afternoons when the world seemed to move both too fast and too quietly. Sunlight streamed through the glass walls of JFK International Airport, spilling across the polished floors like liquid gold. The rhythmic hum of rolling suitcases and faint boarding announcements filled the air, a constant symphony of motion and impatience. At gate 43, Dr. Lena Morris stood in line, composed, poised, and unbothered by the restless shuffle of travelers around her. Her posture carried quiet dignity, the kind that didn't need to demand attention but somehow drew it anyway. She checked her phone once, then slipped it back into her bag, with the same deliberate grace that marked every movement she made. Her soft curls framed a thoughtful face, one that had weathered too many moments of being underestimated, dismissed or questioned. But today she carried no visible frustration, just patience. Behind her, a family argued about luggage weight. In front of her, a man sighed loudly at the line's slow pace. Yet Lena remained still, her calm and unspoken rebellion against the chaos around her. She had learned long ago that silence could be stronger than any defense, especially in a world that too often mistook grace for weakness. When Lena reached the counter, the air seemed to shift, subtly at first, like a quiet tension settling between two strangers. The gate agent, a young woman with precise eyeliner and a tone sharpened by authority, glanced at Lena's passport with a flicker of disdain she didn't bother to hide. "Are you sure this is yours?" she asked, her voice dripping with suspicion as her manicured finger tapped the worn navy cover. Lena's brow lifted, calm but firm. "Yes," she replied softly. "I've used it for over 10 years. The line behind her stirred with impatience. A cough here, an audible sigh there. The agent rolled her eyes dramatically and held the passport under the fluorescent light, tilting it back and forth as though she were examining contraband. Then she leaned toward her colleague, whispered something, and both stifled a laugh. Without warning, a harsh rip cut through the murmuring crowd. A page had torn. Lena's breath caught. "Excuse me, you just damaged my passport." The agent only shrugged. "Looks fake to me." "Can't let you board." Her words echoed like a verdict. Security was summoned. Cameras turned. Whispers multiplied. And Lena stood frozen, dignity trembling, her heart pounding, as the symbol of her identity and years of travel was reduced to an object of doubt in a stranger's hand. Lena didn't raise her voice. She didn't plead or argue. Her stillness cut through the noise more sharply than anger ever could. Her eyes, calm, steady, unreadable, met the gate agent's with quiet precision. "Are you absolutely sure?" she asked softly. "You want to proceed with this accusation?" The young woman hesitated for half a second before masking it with a smirk. "Yes, ma'am. I'm doing my job." Lena's lips curved into the faintest smile, not of amusement, but of understanding. "That's what I needed to hear," she replied, her voice even, almost gentle. Then she turned and walked away. No scene, no bitterness, just silence that left the air strangely heavy behind her. For a few moments, nothing happened, only the usual bustle of boarding calls and rolling suitcases. But 20 minutes later, the calm fractured. The boarding system froze mid-check-in. The monitors flickered, then went black. The flight manifest disappeared from the screen entirely. Passengers murmured in confusion. The gate agent began frantically pressing buttons, her earlier confidence melting into panic. Supervisors rushed in. Phones rang in a flurry of urgency. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. And the woman they had humiliated was nowhere to be seen. Only her quiet question lingered in the air like an omen. A wave of confusion rippled through the gate as a tall man in a dark suit strode in, his presence commanding instant attention. His polished shoes clicked sharply against the floor, each step echoing authority. Without hesitation, he approached the trembling gate agent, who was still fumbling with the frozen system. "Where is Dr. Lena Morris?" he demanded, his tone clipped and urgent. The agent blinked, her voice cracking. "Dr. who?" The man exhaled heavily, the weight of disappointment in his eyes. "The woman you just accused," he said slowly, each word cutting through the air. the one whose passport you destroyed. She's the lead investigator for the International Aviation Ethics Council. She was here to evaluate your airline's compliance protocols. The hum of the terminal faded into silence. Passengers stopped whispering. Even the overhead announcements seemed to vanish. The agent's face drained of color. Her hands, once so steady in authority, now shook. And then, Lena appeared, calm, poised. The faint reflection of the terminal lights glimmered off her tablet, displaying a video of the entire confrontation, recorded by onlookers. Her voice was measured, unwavering. "Your system failed today," she said softly. "Not the computer system, the human one." The words hung in the air, heavy and unforgettable. Within an hour, chaos had replaced order. The bright monitors above Gate 43 now displayed a single, dreaded word: delayed. Passengers groaned, supervisors whispered in corners, and the air buzzed with tension thick enough to touch. Somewhere in the confusion, a quiet email had reached corporate headquarters, and its consequences spread faster than rumor. By evening, a formal notice was issued. All international operations suspended pending investigation into discrimination and security misconduct. What began as a single act of arrogance had grown into a corporate reckoning. The gate agent, once so confident behind her counter, now stood pale and trembling as security approached. No one raised their voice. The silence itself was punishment enough. She was escorted out through the same terminal where she had mocked another woman hours before. But now, all eyes were on her for a different reason. And as the terminal lights dimmed, Dr. Lena Morris walked toward the exit, her steps unhurried, her expression serene. The late afternoon sun spilled through the glass doors, casting her in a warm golden glow. No anger, no triumph, just quiet justice. Behind her, the airline that had tried to strip her dignity now faced the weight of her truth, and the silence she left behind spoke louder than any courtroom ever could. Justice, Lena believed, was never about noise. It didn't need to shout, to rage, or to demand attention. True justice moved quietly, steady and patient, observing the arrogance of those who believed they held power, waiting for the exact moment to remind them that power is not granted by position, but by integrity. In the days that followed, headlines spread across the world. Words like discrimination, ethics breach, and accountability appeared beside the name of the airline. Yet Lena remained silent, far from the storm she had unintentionally unleashed. When she finally released her statement, it wasn't long, nor bitter. It was a reflection, calm, sharp, and unforgettable. "They saw a woman they thought was powerless," she wrote. "What they didn't see was the system she was sent to evaluate, and the mirror she held up to them." Her words echoed far beyond the walls of that airport. They became a reminder that silence is not weakness, and dignity is not submission. Sometimes, the strongest act of defiance is simply standing still, letting truth speak when others expect outrage. And in her quiet way, Dr. Lena Morris proved that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and the world still listens. Never underestimate quiet strength. True power doesn't need to shout, it only needs the truth.